What is up, everybody? What an exciting show we have today. Let me turn the volume down a little. You like that intro, Pearl?
I do.
Nice. I like the finger up. What an exciting show we have today. I'm Blue. This is Blue Node. And, weekly or a couple times a week, we cover interesting that are happening in ordinals, the macro space, and everything. But this one is not on many people's radars, I think. Not as many as it should be. Today with me, I have the real Perot, who I love sharing spaces with. You always have great insights, Perot, on so many topics. And, I feel like there's two types of people in this space. There's like the people who think they're getting quick flips and are in it, to try and make money, and which is fine. And then there's the people who are trying to use ordinals and parent-child and the whole community to do something cool with it. And I feel like you're definitely firmly rooted in the latter, which are the stories that I like to talk about in the show. So welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. Super hyped to be here. Super hyped. And I'm just looking forward to it. I love it. I love all the Bitcoin, all the cool things with ordinals, and I could just go on and love it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's what a day to go live, huh? The OMB mint just happened. Bitcoin's at like $86,000. I was like, oh shit, Bitcoin's at 92. I don't check it all the time. You and I were just talking. I looked. I'm like, oh shit, 86, 87. So we've gone below kind of lower bands, and I'm sure there's blood in the streets. People are panicking. Runes are dead, but I don't know. Do we care? Because ordinals, and the whole concept of it and the eternalness of it, it's fine. It's alive and kicking.
Oh man, yeah. I saw a post the other day. Less than a year ago or something, the price of Bitcoin was, I don't know, 30K or something, and it's 80K now, which my last super big foray with Bitcoin was when it hit like 60K, and I thought that was just incredible. And so to sit here now, I'm in this zone more recently where I'm sitting on a chair, just leaned back, mostly in my mind with Bitcoin, because I'm in it for the long haul. So none of the price fluctuation really at this point really bothers me.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with Bitcoin, certainly I think the people are getting wrecked the most is probably runes and just pure shitcoinery, right? Solana's just getting trounced, and I was actually surprised with that one. I figured since David Sachs is the czar of Trump's crypto cabinet or whatever, and he was an early, literally Solana investor. It's sad to say the name with a coin and then an early investor, because with Bitcoin you're not an early investor. It's like when did you get the orange pill? When did you get baptized to Bitcoin? Because it's so decentralized. But for other coins, there were early investors, but it's getting wrecked. I assume that's a fallout from meme coins and all that stuff. But I don't know. Sounds like it's not too troubling to you either.
Yeah, I found long ago, I'm a terrible trader in that sense of it's just short term trading. So I do little of it. I still kind of dabble, but I do little of it. So, with Bitcoin, I'm in it, again, kind of for the long term. So price action, I really just stick to DCA these days. I don't really actively trade it. Ordinals maybe a little bit more, runes is definitely a little bit more, but with Bitcoin, the hard asset, I don't really I don't mess with it too much. But yeah, man, a lot of it's taking a hit. Solana's taking a hit
Yeah,
today.
it all is. And you know what? I think Solana will be fine. I didn't do a ton of Solana meme coins, but I assume there's a ton of fallout from that. And people are just like, wait, why am I even holding the underlying? My thesis was well, hold some Solana. I'm not going to gamble on the meme coins, but I'll hold the underlying because people got to go into Solana for that. But I assume there is a mass exodus from people losing and, all sorts of meme coins blowing up and that stupid Yi stuff. But whatever, that's certainly not why we're here, but it's what a crazy time to be alive. Because I know there's so many emotions on the timeline right now. Like if you and I wanted to get, a huge audience for this show, I should have put like Bitcoin at 87K. Is it going to 30K? People be like, shit, I got to pay attention, but I don't know. I refuse to pump the titles for stuff like that. Like people who want quality content are gonna. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and there's a lot of bad stuff out there. But people will seek what they're looking for.
Yeah, big time, big time. Are
So
you, hey, let me just ask,
yeah,
are you an active trader?
no. I'm kind of like you. My biggest wins have just been to hold Bitcoin. I got into Ethereum early. I held that. So my biggest wins have always been just hold. So like I've got a lot of early inscription ordinals, like the one you're looking at on the screen right here. And like, it's funny because I could probably get the cash value back, like the US dollar value, because Bitcoin's gone up so much, but the Bitcoin value's gone way down. So it's like a triple L, because not only do you spend, like, let's say it was 4 Bitcoin and now it's worth say 1.5 or 1 or whatever it is. Like you lose the Bitcoin, you sold for the tax, the Bitcoin, and got a massive tax hit when you sold it. And now when you get it, the cash is break even. So you can't even write anything off, and you go from like 4 Bitcoin to 1 Bitcoin. So it's like, I think what people don't realize in this space is that, like, as the price of Bitcoin keeps ripping, art eventually, and this is where I disagree with a lot of people. I think a lot of people are like, art always generally outpaces the underlying asset. So like fine art from Picasso or Van Gogh is always going to outperform the US dollar, but Bitcoin's not the US dollar. Bitcoin's not an inflationary asset. It's an appreciating asset, right? I mean, not today, but in
Yep.
time. So my thesis is, when Bitcoin, like, you said, you're mentioning when it was at 30 and at 60, and now we're at 80, we were at 108 before. As Bitcoin gets more expensive and it goes up that ramp, I think that's when people don't want to buy into ordinals and runes and stuff, because they're like, Bitcoin is volatile up or down. Then when it stabilizes again, they'll buy it. But I think, let's say Bitcoin rips to 185 by the end of the year, I don't think ordinals yet go 1-to-1 with it. I think in 20, 30 years, when all the boomers are gone and younger generations see digital art as kind of the masterpieces that they should be, then there's going to be more of a demand. People will understand it more. It'll be even more solidified into the whole like mind share of humanity, and it will eventually be able to outpace Bitcoin. But until all the sovereigns, until all the states, until all the pension funds and all the individuals who get Bitcoin for whatever reason, mostly as digital gold and as a future store of appreciating value, I don't think art can outcompete it, except in very small instances or in very tight windows, which you have to guess and hope Bitcoin doesn't rip while you're doing it. So that's my
Right.
thesis. So
Right.
a long answer to your question is, now, like you said, you DCA, you hodl, and then you go on the timeline and you buy art from things you like and people you like, and you try and make sure you save as many sats as possible. It's a pretty easy thesis.
Yeah. No, it's a good one. I'm aligned with how you feel too. And I just think that it's such a nascent and young ecosystem, and that like the things we're talking about are these long-term narratives, right? Like art on Bitcoin in itself is such a long-term narrative. And in the real world, art is a collectible. And so they're slow cooks. You're lucky as a collector or a trader of collectible assets to realize some significant gains in a short time frame. I mean, that's like a real luck, or you're just really on it, and you've got a really good in. So,
Or
these
you're part
narratives
of
we're
a
talking
cabal
about.
that's pumping it and you're on the inside dumping on, I mean, let's be honest, like that happens so much less in
It
ordinal space,
happens.
but it even happens in the ordinal space because, Ethereum is first and people had their swords sharpened as ordinals opened up. So, Yeah, absolutely. And there are really good traders out there, but the more I go on, the more I realize generally I'm not one of them. Because it'll be interesting now before we get into the Perot family parent-child, which I'm so excited about. This is such an interesting topic that I'm guessing like your inner circle and a lot of your friends know about, but I don't think the greater, parent child is already so niche in and of itself. A lot of collections don't actually even do it. But the fact that you're taking it to a whole nother level is pretty amazing. I just be curious before we jump into that though, like, you've got these runes, you've got pups, you got Billy, maybe Gizmo, maybe Dog or Arsic or whatever. Like after this bloodbath, I mean, it's not going to go down forever. When it's down, it feels like it's go down forever, but at some point things will go up. Like because memes have no underlying value at all, do they become tired and the only way to have a meme pop is to, when a market's going to go up, have a new one? Or is there a value? Could Billy rise from the ashes with all the memes and the team and all these people that are trying to push it? Could it go up again like the same old meme? I'm torn on that one.
I'm uh I'm actually I feel like I have a definitive stance on that. And
Oh,
mine is actually that some memes do have an underlying value. And I mean, there's a lot to unpack out of my perception of value and how I value stuff in life. But I do believe that like memes inherently can hold value in different ways, but mainly like laughter and happiness, right? Like if there's a meme that has residual laughter or like continual comical value, then I think that has like real lasting power, to be honest. And, there's other aspects, maybe, it's got laughing power, and then it's also some sort of like relevance in some setting, cultural, you could say. And I think those memes will stick around and have, some lasting power as well. So while it seems like these meme coins, shit coins have no underlying value, and 99.9998% of them don't and won't have any lasting power. I think that there is like a super small percentage that, will have lasting power. And I don't know. I mean, they're definitely tradable assets. Like they're much more short term as far as like the trade goes or the flip. I'd say they're collectibles in a certain sense, but not so much. And you know, uh, but at the same time, you got to look at like Epic, right? When Epic released the first Epic sat, Epic, to be inscribed on. I mean that's to me that's a collectible, and I don't need a lot of that to feel like I have something, right? Like I'll keep a little bag of that forever just because I think it's cool, and I think that there was like some timeline significance there. Um, Now, is it a meme? Less so. Is it funny? Less so. And I really kind of gravitate towards laughter and the smile factor for me when it comes to a meme, because those are kind of like the first things that come to mind when I talk about memes or think about memes. But I mean, epic. I think that there's something really super freaking cool about that. The whole story. And I know that, maybe it wasn't a perfect show, but I still think that that thing is super cool. So I'll always hold like a little bit of that. And yeah, I mean, potentially, there's more people that feel the same way, you know.
interesting. I did not expect you to pick that when people are usually like, oh, Gizmo or Billy, they're funny, or Dog, because
Oh,
Leonidas types in all caps and he just wills that thing to stay up, and it has a wide distribution from the obviously the rune stones behind it. But Epic, that's an interesting one. I don't know if I fully like. To me, that's such a waste of an Epic sat to like do a rune around it. Like, I don't know. To me, a pure Epic sat would be worth more than that. Like, I get where they were going, and if I could afford it, maybe I would have tried it. But I think that one kind of backfired a little bit, because the Epic
well,
sat has on Neuro, that's got that cool blob art, right? And then the epic sat is all, I believe that same epic sat was used as the parent for epic, 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 if I'm not mistaken. I know there's a double inscription
Yeah,
there.
yeah, there was too. That's what draws me in though, right? Like the kind of wrestling within ourselves of like, well, not really, that's where I'm just like, just a little bag because that's not like a funny one for me. I mean, I'll forever like promote pups and big extent Gizmo. I mean, that stuff's just hilarious to me, and that kind of thing will forever be comical. I don't think those memes will die. And then culturally, things like there's other ones, right? Billy and Dog and those ones, and I'm sure there's more coming. Um, but those ones for other reasons. I mean, Dog not so funny, or maybe like just Leo on the timeline with all caps is pretty funny.
Yeah, funny to
But
some,
yeah,
annoying to others. Muted by many. But I made money in
yeah,
Dog. I
yeah,
shouldn't complain about it. I sold all mine early in the game. Not at peak, but good enough where it's certainly not not where it is now. But yeah, here are the two epic things. So here's the design on the epic set. So these are what I didn't realize. These are both, and this art is pretty cool. But this both of these are inscribed on the same epic sat. And what other few don't know
yeah,
is that there's actually a second epic sat that has been sequestered. Some speculate that ZK has it, but somebody in the space actually has it, which is fairly interesting to me. Like I think the only artist, maybe not the only one, but the only one of the only ones I could think of who would be worthy of an epic would be like Banksy, or like it has to be bigger than big, or an artist who's got enough money and ballsy enough to inscribe on that epic and be like, this is my art and I'm inscribing. Like, I mean, there's going to be like, how many of them? There's going to be like 20 of them and the entire, maybe 30 or 40. There's not going to be many of them once every 4 years, right? And there's 5 now. Oh, max supply 32. So there you go. Like
yeah. And
to
to it's like to me the more important thing. I couldn't like the what's on the sat is less important than the fact that it's the first to me as a collector. That's kind of it for me. The fact
yeah,
that it's like just the first one, and then also that I actually lived through that timeline and was there like the night of, and then the whole nine, right? Like all those things, like so. There's some personal relevance for me, and then the fact that it's like the first. So it's less so that what's on there uh, that makes it like that much that cool effect for me.
shit, I hadn't seen this one. Have you seen this one? Put your PFP
The,
here. This is a
is that the
rare.
rare set?
Yeah, I didn't. Interesting. I did not know about this
Yeah,
one. I'll have to look into this. And this rare set in your wallet.
I saw that. I haven't tried that one yet.
I don't know. I'll have to look and see where this sat. What year is this? It looks like so. It's oh, this is a new sat. Oh no, they just created it December 25th. What year is this sat? Anyway, we're getting off topic, but yeah, it's interesting stuff. I mean, it's so fun to talk and share perspectives with people in the space, because I think we both agree there's you couldn't, we've gone so deep down this rabbit hole now, you couldn't possibly explain this to normies without like, like, hey, explain this to me. Be like, do you have 4 days straight? And I could like start, like there's so much nuance to it. Think about how much we've learned about just money, markets, like trading, even though we're not traders, but each meme coin and just influence, like we've seen all this stuff baked in, and as disgusting as it can get, there's a lot of learning in there that's like, I don't know what it's useful for, but I know in this lifetime, like just having monetary policy ripped open and all of us to explore and try shit and be our own literal Fed and printing our own coins and stuff. It's a fascinating time. You can't like you just can't. To my normie friends, I can't even start to explain it. It's like it would be too watered down.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it. My wife asked me the other day. She's like how does somebody who isn't in this space like for the past 4 years and in it every day, how do they get into this? How do they do it? How do they do it? And I was like, they don't.
Or buy art,
They
or
just
have their friend buy, I
well,
don't know.
the short answer was that the long obviously they do and but it takes like you said it's just so much, right? My first instinct and my first answer was like, man, it's a lot to take in. And so it's our job, really the challenge for us, the folks that have been in here, is to condense it, right? And to
Right.
package it in a way that's digestible because there's so many avenues to get lost on, right? Just like this epic set. It's like you could just get in there and just dissect that thing forever. So it's really just, cutting the fat out and getting it in a way that like anybody can kind of understand it, right? To tell me like I'm 5 years old, right? Like what's going on here? And that's like it's an important time for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, 100%. So let's transition into like the Perot family and you. And how did you how did you get into crypto? Were you Bitcoin, then ETH NFTs, then ordinals like the majority, or did you have a unique road to get here?
Yeah, so I in a very condensed way, right? I got interested once I hit 21 in my life because I didn't think I was going to last that long. I was kind of like this reckless kid.
Yeah.
I was like, I got super interested in centenarians, right? People that live to be 100 plus years. And that drove me into a rabbit hole of, I got super interested into health and like what people around the earth were eating and food. And that got me into a rabbit hole and I was already into plants, but that got me further in the rabbit hole of plants and, nutrition and that sort of thing. So then, you know, that avenue and those things are kind of part and parcel with self sovereignty, self banking, currency. In school, I never learned about economics. I never learned about personal finance. I never learned about currencies. I never learned about money.
It's a
Really, they just
shame.
didn't teach it.
It's a shame
Didn't
they
talk
don't
about
teach
it.
that. It's a joke.
Just throw you out in the world, and
My
yeah,
my kid just
it,
came home like a week ago and she's like, "Hey dad, I learned how to write a check." I'm like, "I'll chalk that up to one more useless thing that they don't teach you." But I will say, in whatever the consumer ed class's defense, there was a couple things where she's like, "Dad, I know how to tip now." And he's talking about like saving money for retirement and what a bond is. I'm like, "Oh, that's actually fairly useful." Like if you could teach your kid one thing, it's basically like, Bitcoin aside, like learn how to be a saver. Don't spend more than you have. Like real basic stuff that kids aren't taught. Like because our whole economy is dependent on consumerism. That it's just unfortunately that's not taught unless you have a parent who's either frugal, like my dad was, or he learned more financial frugality and fiscal smartness later in life, but I'm the youngest, so I was able to kind of absorb a lot of that. But a lot of people don't learn that, and they just like they get the credit cards in college, they max it out. But that's cool. It sounds like you basically like you had a it sounds like you had a very active and crazy childhood, and it sounds like the system didn't serve you well. The school system, just society in general, like you are definitely not a round peg in a round hole.
right. No, I wasn't. And my dad was kind of a unique guy too, and he also surrounded himself with well, he had these weekly calls with this really diverse group of
Oh,
people, and one of them was this economist. and one of the top economists in the country. And so, long story short, I got into his blog. He has a blog that's still live right today, and it taught me everything I know about currency pretty much in this blog. It's a very long read, but it's really a fascinating blog. It's got a lot of info, and it's really like it hits the nail on the head. So that pretty much part it was that, and then also my recklessness of wanting, to experience life or whatever. And I was eventually trying to order some weed to my parents' house, and I got on Silk Road, and
Love it.
I got on the faucet, got some Bitcoin. I bought a little Bitcoin, and I tried to order some weed to my parents' house, and was trying to learn how to do that and figure that thing out. And I got I got caught at the time for something else, freaked out, got rid of everything Bitcoin at that
Oh
time.
man.
The
So that was your
package
it
came, I
sounds like
got
that
rid of
was your
it.
turning point though, where you're like, wait, I have interests. School didn't serve me, but I want to live and I want to pursue these things. Like, and unfortunately
Oh man,
Bitcoin got
yeah.
dumped out because it was associated for you with weed and Silk Road. It was obviously the early days. So, we regret that one. So we're not just self sovereign and filthy rich now, but it sounds like that was a huge, important turning point in your life for kind of like wanting to live and open up and kind of live your most authentic life.
Yeah, yeah, and I always kept my eye on Bitcoin because of it being the early days. No one knew. Um, no one knew what was going to happen, or at least in my mind, I didn't know if it was going to ever take, if it was ever going to be anything. I saw the price going up and just being like, oh, well, is it a farce, or who really knows? But I believed in the message,
Mm-hmm.
and I believed in the long-term vision of it. I believed in those ideas, and I was reading, all the as much as I could about like current all these different subjects at the time, but like currencies in general. And then, the long-term viability of like a currency available to anybody on earth that could be self-banked and like, self-custodied and have value retained throughout the earth. So I like believed all that, for all time, right? And as soon as I read that stuff, I was like, yeah, man, this is where I want to be. But yeah, that was really like my beginnings. I didn't actually start like really diving and buying hardcore until like 2017.
Okay.
Um, but I I've been following it for a long time, and it really plays into a lot of things that I'm interested in. And it's funny that plants, and then longevity, and just skill building. Learning how to do things for yourself really brought in the that interest, very much so. So I really credit it, and I credit it to that part of my life.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's just so neat to see how everybody gets here and yeah, that's just that just hits home because you used it, you kept an eye on it, but then you get more and more into it. Obviously, as the price goes up, you're like, wait a second, this thing, like you're what you knew kind of before intuitively hits, and you get into it, and then obviously we both know it becomes a lifestyle, and then so tell me about your family, because this really is a story of the, am I pronouncing it right, the Perot's?
Yeah, Perot's, and actually, good segue. I hear a little guy right now, so
Okay.
let me jump on this
Yeah.
other device here, and I'm gonna go grab him, and I'll keep talking here.
All
But
right, cool.
reiterate the question real quick,
Just let me know when you can hear me.
and let me know you can hear me.
Okay, so I can hear you. I'm gonna switch. Let's see. I'm gonna switch the camera to Guest Pro 2. Yeah, that's all right. So Yeah, so tell me about, it sounds like art is a big part of the Perot family. Like tell me about the Perot family. Like so um you're first generation American, but obviously Perot is very French. You got the French flag and your thing. So tell me about the Perot family. Uh-oh, I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So my dad immigrated from France. So I'm first generation American on his side.
Got it.
And um, he was one of three brothers in France. And so my grandma and my grandpa lived a pretty simple life. They had a few siblings themselves. Um, but my father came to the States when he was about 19. And he, it's a quite a long story there for him. I don't know if you know anything about the unification movement
Mm-mm.
or the spiritual movements of the 70s and 60s. But during that time, a lot of people were kind of searching for spirituality, searching for, all these different things, right? They had a lot of different things going on in the 70s and 60s. So that's kind of what brought him over to the States. And he met my mom. He didn't speak a lick of English, really. And they got married. And soon after, had my older brother right outside of DC. They actually got married in Madison Square Garden, which I thought was cool
Damn.
because Postwook, the Sphere's there, and Postwook has her piece or had her piece up there.
Wait, what do you mean? The
Is
sphere's
that
in
right?
No, the sphere's in
Oh, it's in.
Vegas.
But it's a Madison Square Garden like affiliate, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I think Matt. I think the same dudes do own the Sphere. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I think that is correct. Yeah, I was like, nah,
Yeah,
I don't think it's in New York.
I, I thought it was an affiliate there, but um,
I think the same people
so I
who
thought,
I think it's the same ownership. I believe.
yeah, so I thought that was cool. Um,
Yeah, no, that's super neat. So what am I looking
so,
at here? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
Nope.
Yeah, so
Go
I
ahead.
mean, pretty much, you know, we're we got grandfathered into the citizenship. So there's four siblings, right? There's me, my older brother, my younger brother, and my younger sister.
Okay.
We're my dad immigrated here, and we're all first generation American on his side. My mom is Irish Italian. She's one generation away from immigration, so her grandmother immigrated, and then her grandfather immigrated. Um, and so yeah, we're a family of immigrants pretty much.
Yeah, that's what America is. That's pretty cool. So what's this picture? I know this is the parent, and we're going to get into that. But like, what is this? Was this made by your grandmother? Because that's where the story, at least for you and for Bitcoin and ordinals and parent-child provenance and on-chain, the your grandparents is where this all begins. Correct?
Correct. So this is the grandparent inscription for the whole. Well, I mean, I say it's a collection, but really it's every inscription that my family puts on Bitcoin will hopefully be linked to this inscription through parent-child provenance and parent-child of all the inscriptions. And so basically, we're building out a family tree on Bitcoin, and each individual within the family is represented by a piece of artwork that one of us have created. And so far it's been um, my grandparents have created art, and then my father has created art, and our generation has created art. And so our generation is linked to my father's work. My father is linked to my grandmother's work. And so far it's been like that.
Okay, so inscription 666,080,318 is your grandparents' inscription. So your grandma from France, obviously, and I know your dad was too. He's first generation who came over here. So you're truly first generation born here. Your grandma she was the first kind of artist in the family that we're focusing around. This is the parent set, or the Perot family seal, if you will, that everything, like you said, hopefully, a cousin could always inscribe without being under the parent, but you've been very meticulous in making sure that things fall under it. So you've got your parent here. Tell us about your grandma a little bit.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that the sound's okay. I'm getting a little close to the
No, you're fine.
laptop.
You're fine.
Okay, so let me just show you. Let's see. So I'm here, and if you flip, do you have me on camera right now? Or do you want to go to my? Okay. So here's the pieces actually right here.
Oh, okay.
Those?
I was like, no, I've got it right here on screen. You're like, no, the piece is in real life, dude. Oh, that's so cool. So,
Okay. So these are made from my grandma. They're clay,
okay.
right? Glazed. And I'll show you underneath. Try to make this good here. This is my grandma's signature.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Yep. Oh, that's a cool signature.
And
It
this
looks
is,
like an octopus or something.
it's like a little figurine, chicken figurine
Okay.
or bird figurine. She had kind of this affinity for birds. And it's pretty much on every piece she ever made. So in all the pieces online, even or on Bitcoin, you can pretty much find that signature somewhere on the piece. Only like very few of her pieces don't have that. But yeah, she was the creative matriarch of the family.
I love the
She
I love the concept of like that, you're honoring your grandmother. Is she still with us today?
she actually passed away last year.
Sorry for your loss. And did you inscribe this while she was still alive, or had she passed?
So that one was when she was still alive.
Very cool. So she maybe didn't fully understand Bitcoin. Like, before she died, did she get what you were doing to a certain degree?
I tried my hardest to explain it, but she didn't really understand it. Um, you know, it, yeah, she didn't really understand it. I think a lot of the elders have like a hard time understanding what the heck is going on.
Right.
And specifically, my grandma lived in a she was like transported to like a creative realm often, and so she kind of stayed in that zone. And that's maybe hard to explain, but if you can understand that, like that would the best way I could kind of describe it.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Well, that, and like, cause my mom passed in 2018, and I had a big win before she passed. I got her like the first of Bitcoin. They're like, what are you talking about? And finally, maybe in like 16 or 17, she was like she got it, and she got some. I think GBTC had just come out, and she got some, and she's like, I'm holding my Bitcoin. Like, she totally. I don't want to say she totally got it, but she got the concept enough, like the inflation, the Bitcoin is gold theory, and I was like, all right. So I passed it on her, but it was not easy with art. That's another layer, like you and I are talking about. That's even more difficult. So she's the creative matriarch. She made these beautiful are these swans out of clay, and this is the parent inscription. And then you've got 6 children, correct?
right. And so the swans represent her and my grandpa.
And your grandpa, right?
And my grandpa had some pieces, but they were out of wood. And I'll get into why those are kind of hard to source. But the six pieces, there's three male or masculine pieces, or at least that I felt were masculine to me, and then three feminine pieces. And so those are representative of my grandparents' three sons, which is my father and then my two uncles and their wives. And they each had
Oh,
a
cool.
wife. Yeah. And so they each had a wife and they each had multiple children.
Okay.
Right. So, and it's our way. And really behind the scenes, it's me, my older brother, and my father. With me being kind of the having the biggest foot or the biggest step in the crypto world.
Sure.
But so when I say like we, it's really us three. But we wanted to, and I wanted to give or leave the door open for kind of that side of the family if they wanted to, link artwork to this tree, because we have a bunch of cousins that are around and they're having kids, and they're creatives, musicians, and all the things. So, that's what they represent. And if they ever wanted to link to the tree, that I've only used, and you'll see my father's piece and then my mother's piece for my side of the family. So there's no children inscriptions on four of those six pieces.
Got it. Which one's your mother and father's?
It's the two on the right of the screen there. The
Those
one
are
with
beautiful.
Ren,
So that's your
yeah, and then the one with the
father,
dog. Yep.
and the female is that's your mother. So do your parents? I know your dad didn't speak a lick of English before he came over to America. It sounds like he adapted well, brought your family over, and you guys have it sounds like there's been ups and downs, but have thrived as a family here in America and had a chance to get away from there. Do your parents get it? Like, has your dad, like, is he more embracing putting your grandma, his mom's art online, or does he kind of get the bigger picture of this real life parent child with his brothers and wives too?
Yeah, so at this point he does, like my father does. My mom less so. But it was a long path to get to today, and there's been like a lot of family politics and a lot of family education to like get to today. Especially with this work and like using my grandma's work. But my father, he gets it. He gets it now. But originally, this collection was going to go on Ethereum, until I learned that, and the whole space learned that nothing on Ethereum is like truly permanent unless the entire
Yeah,
species deems it so. I mean, Bitcoin, it has a little bit more lasting power, right? And so
one hundred
I feel
percent.
fortunate because it was serendipitous on how like I had to wait to get the collection actually launched. And that's why I say like it's actually been in the works for 5 years because there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of like family navigation and politics and stuff, um, to get to today. And my dad initially didn't understand what was going on or what the purpose was, and even my grandma, you know, she she created this art for herself and for her family, and so there was a lot of internal
Oh,
navigating through a lot of people or a lot of family members of like, okay, well, what does it look like, to kind of meet certain dreams that my grandmother had in a way that this stuff, if there's money being generated from sales of the artwork of her artwork, how does that really
yeah.
mesh well with her dreams, and how can we do that? Because she wasn't out there to just sell art, make art for profit. And she was like very against that. And she didn't want her work to be like that. She wanted one of her dreams for her work to be in a museum and where people, or in a setting where public could see it. Because one resounding thing, like throughout her life and her time, and even till today, like not many people outside of our family has seen her work. Not many people have seen my dad's work or me and my brothers and sister work. No one's really seen it, right? And that's a big part of it, right? So we've been challenged on how to, how do we do it, right? Like how do we meet these certain dreams that she had and that we have without being like extractive, greedy, all the things, and to monetize it in a way that could meet that face to face and honor her in a certain way. So that's a constant question, right? And I don't think that question's ever going to go away, even for me as an artist. I want to just create to create. Like, man, if I had all the money in the world, that's all I would do.
Yeah.
That's all my time would just be devoted to that in different mediums that I love. But the realities of the world for me, anywho, are the realities of the world. And so, Bitcoin and putting stuff on Bitcoin is not cheap. And that's one of the realities.
Especially photographs and images, like generative code. That's why generative code is so popular here, because you can make images and shapes and patterns through code, which is just text, right? But when you're actually inscribing physical real life pieces, there's a lot of trade-offs you have to make. You might have to change the RGB value. You might obviously have to take the file size, anything to get the file size down, because if you're 10 sats per VB, that can add up quickly. So there's a lot of trade-offs. Right. I love those limitations, but like you said, it's a challenge. It's way more eternally on chain, which we love. And I'm so glad you waited those 5 years. Like, talk about luck. Like, right when Ordinals came out, were you like, like the sky's open? You're like, that's where we're doing it. Like, thank God I waited.
I did. I mean, originally it was, I'll be honest, I was eyeing Counterparty, but there was a lot of holdups there, politics on their end, and lack of like some serious development, but then also like the cost was it's higher to put on Counterparty, and I almost went that route. But yes, when Ordinals launched and as it was launching, I knew that eventually I would be putting the work here, right? Again, there was some more conversations, some more politics to happen on my end. That's why I didn't get, that's why my inscriptions are not like sub 1 million or so. But I knew it. And then also what really the light bulb came on was when Parent Child came out. When they released, when Casey released that, I was like, oh man, aha. That was the aha moment.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, well, all this tech here I'm looking at kind of looks like you could make a digital family tree using creative work. And how freaking sick would that be? And then I'm sitting in the background with, well, I got all this, all these family members that are creating and they're artists in their life. And I'm like, blam, I know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it just, it really made sense in a meaningful way, right? It made it that much more meaningful, right? Once Parent Child rolled out, I was just like smitten. And I knew what was going to happen.
It just hits you on the head. Like, even the name Parent Child, you're like, my God, it's perfect, So, I mean, I loved your story, and the more that I was on different spaces with you, the more I'm like, oh man, this is like, there's so much to tease out of this. Because you literally have taken parent-child provenance in the literal sense, with genealogy and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it looks like your dad has inscribed some. So are you inscribed? Is your stuff under your father or mother, or are both parents?
Right now, it's just under my father. So my father, I'm helping him roll out a few pieces. And really, the main point is storage, right? Putting the art on chain. That's like the main point of this whole project. And that was my main purpose to go to Counterparty, to go to Ethereum, is just to get this art on chain, because the most important thing to me and to us was that idea, and is that idea of permanence and like
Yeah.
another layer of it, right? Nothing's truly permanent. We can get philosophical about it, but the layer, the idea of it, right? And how to store it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the main goal. So, you know, my father right now, what I'm doing is releasing the pieces that represent the kids. So far I've released mine and I've released my younger brothers, and they're on Gamma right now, in an addition sense. And that's partly to help, support the project.
Very cool.
My sister's is next, and then my older brother will be final. And then there'll be the four pieces that represent the kids, and limited editions there for sale. And they'll probably be left there for sale for as long as they're going to be until they sell, to support the project. But I don't think my dad's going to sell any more of his work. The rest of his work that comes on chain is just going to be there for storage.
Yeah.
So most of the work is not going to be for, well, most of my grandmother's work is not going to be for sale, right?
Are we
It's
talking
mostly
about in
just
real
storage.
life or your grandmother's art that's been put on chain?
Yeah, so in real life, the physical work for certain is not for sale. It's like family heirlooms.
Right.
So there's already been a lot of discussion about that, and the conclusion is it's just not for sale. So that's kind of part and parcel with her dream, is to have this museum, or to have her work in a museum. And then our dream is to kind of shelter the work, for as long as possible, because we think, we're just connected to it like that, and we treasure it. It's heirloom stuff. So the
Yeah.
physicals aren't for sale. The digital representations, were a way for us to release, pieces of it that could be monetized. And now another way is like if we make some prints, physical prints.
Sure.
Um, but it's an evolving thing I've learned for myself over the past, as I'm rolling these pieces out. I'm constantly kind of evolving, what it looks like on chain, as far as the purpose and how many pieces actually I found. And so there's kind of a lot to unpack out of that. Um, but yeah, it's an ever ongoing evolution with this project, and you know, it's kind of like Bitcoin in the space itself. It's just always evolving right now.
Yeah. No, that's really well put. And you can mute yourself too when you're not
Yeah.
talking, just so it's easier for people to hear. Um, yeah, this is fascinating because like you bring up the politics, and I don't want to get too into that, but I can only imagine like it's like when families own that, that third generation summer cottage or whatever, like at some point, like there's all in no viewpoint is wrong. It's just different viewpoints from like the people who may live across the country who never grew up going to the cottage, or like, let's sell it. I'll take the 60 grand. Like I could use that money right now, and obviously the people who maybe lived a little closer to home where the grandparents were, who went up, for 6 times every summer, like this needs to stay in the family. So it's like the every family has politics, and every family has views. We were just joking before and at the beginning of the show about how hard it is just to like explain to normies Bitcoin and art on Bitcoin and how permanent it is. Like you have a huge task, I guess is my only point. And like I said, every perspective in the family is totally legit, but navigating that, like, that would be really, really difficult. And finding that happy medium, like you said, like, hey, grandma stuff is always going to be like, that's always going to stay within the family. That's what she wanted. That was the essence of who she was. She was not a make a lot of money commercial artist. She was it was sentimental, and it was what mean a lot to her, and family is a big part of that. That totally makes sense. But as generations go, and as you and I get old and we're grandparents, like how cool is it that, like, right now I'm looking at your dad's, I'm in his lineage. So, here's the grandparents above him, and then the children. He's got 25. Is that one for every grandchild of the grandparents?
So, all right, it's a little okay. So everything except for two pieces that you see is are works from my grandmother.
Okay.
Now, I put the 25 on my dad's side from my grandmother, and then I put a certain number um, on my mother's representative piece, um, because, well, different reasons, but basically, I was somewhat in a hurry to get some pieces online during like low fees, and
Yeah.
so I had to try and like get pieces through, and then also realize that, well, after I got the pieces on, it gets a little confusing, and so that's the beauty of Bitcoin, right? It keeps us kind of humble because there's
Yeah.
mistakes on chain that like you make or will make, and it's kind of you kind of learn to roll with it, and you get creative, right?
And it's kind
So
of like
actually,
life, right? Like you didn't get here in a straight line. Like you had to go,
it,
through fire for your childhood to figure out who you were. That's life. And
exactly,
mistakes, we embrace them too.
exactly. So now, those pieces are there, and I still it's still representative this of how I want it to be and how we want it to be, because it was really after my grandma had passed away that we put these 58 pieces um, through through my father's piece and my mother's piece,
Uh-huh.
and that we made this larger collection with. And so it was kind of our decision to do that in an effort, and there was a purpose behind it, and there was a reason why I was in a slight rush. Um, but now looking back on it, to have like a very strict family tree, I've come up with some other ideas that I'm like kind of rolling out in the process, and some of that has to do with text. And so to clear kind of things up on chain for me anyway, um, I had basically my younger sister write some information about my younger brother. My
Mm-hmm.
younger brother writes some information about me. I'm writing information about my older brother. Older brother's writing information about my dad. We're all writing information about my mom. So we're getting all this information text wise, and I'm going to put some text inscriptions on the piece, on the representative pieces, um, to basically just define the family tree a bit more and just basic information. Date of
Interesting.
birth, name, and a little like blurb about life, to make it kind of more like readable, and then also like more tangible.
Right.
Um, I was hoping to have some of those out today, but we had a massive spike in the fees over the week,
Yeah, I
and
saw that. It did go because
yeah,
everyone's panic selling. A lot of transactions right now.
panic selling
I
and BRC20 buying.
Oh yeah, why? That's probably a conversation for the end, maybe. But yeah, I don't know why BRC20 is hot again. Maybe you have an idea. Am I looking right now at? I'm under your mom's child now. I'm the children of your mom's. Is this all your grandma's art?
It is, yeah.
It's really beautiful. I really
So
like the hand sketches. So every single thing in here is your grandma's art. And now I realize, and I won't say what we were talking about or why, but now I realize why you like sunflowers and daisies and stuff like that. Like it's like baked into your family code.
yeah, yeah. My grandma was the first person to kind of get me into plants. She had a small garden in her backyard that we like helped tend to, and So that really resounds throughout my life. And yeah, so I mean, plants have been a big part of my life. Um, the way it worked out actually is that, the color pieces, or most of them, are on my dad's black and white piece. And then the black and white pieces are on my mother's piece, which is the colored watercolor piece, which I halfway through inscribing those pieces realized. And then it became kind of intentional. At first it wasn't. It's kind of like you have these like happy accidents sometimes that you just roll with. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It is kind of cool because your mom and dad's collection is, and I know it's your grandmother's art, but it definitely looks thematic. But we did a show with Gerard and Casey. If you haven't given that one a listen, give that one a listen, because Casey talks about galleries a lot in there. I think, with imperfections, like galleries can help as you mint this stuff, and as you get older in your life and more of your family and your cousins get involved, like the galleries might help like batch your grandma's stuff, like in maybe true more collections, like, oh, this was her black and white pencil series or whatever. Like, so galleries, even though parent child is definitely the way to go, and I think you've nailed it, the gallery will help kind of clean some of this up and to dictate some of this. I'm curious why you had your each of you and your siblings are writing for each other rather than writing for yourself. Why is that? Because it's more objective?
exactly. Yeah. Yep. And I think it's more, I don't know, it's like a fun family project, right? To kind of force my siblings to do something for each other. And then also, I mean, that's the main part. Also, it's a family activity, and it's objective, right? Like you get somebody to write something about you that's not you, right? So it's a little bit like less dry. I felt like if we each did something for ourselves, it would just be like very
Here's
cut and
what I
dry,
did.
right?
It's
You're
it's
just
your resume and not like a funny, colorful story or whatever.
exactly. And you just don't think about the same things, right?
Well, right. And you're so immersed in this, it's probably good to have someone outside of ordinals to write it, because you'd be like, oh, that's a more objective stance on how you view me as like a human and not sucked into this. So where there's 25 roughly
Exactly.
children under your father, you said, which is your what is your seal, if you will, in this collection? What are you publishing under here?
All right, so that's if you'll there's two pieces that are like starkly different in that
Okay, I
under my
think I
father's
saw them at the
piece.
bottom.
They're oil pieces, right? Like one's a landscape, the other one's a picture of a pond.
Yep, I got them.
Yeah, so that landscape one is actually it's called London Town Bus Stop. That piece is the view that me and my siblings had from the bus stop down the street from our townhouse that we grew up in.
No
And
kidding.
so that neighborhood, at least for me, my older brother, like means a lot. We grew up there. There's lots of woods there. All our friends were there. Like we had a lot of connection to that neighborhood, and those houses, those woods, all of it. So that's actually like my favorite piece by my dad. And that's what we did as kids. We like went through my dad's work and we were picking out our favorites. And that one was mine.
So this picture from the bus stop, it looks like it's looking back at the townhomes. There's some beautiful, like whatever, elms, ash, oak. Back when we had tree variation and all the elms didn't die from different crazy Dutch elm disease and stuff like that. But so this is your. It's so funny. We go through these layers, and it's like this is your parent, or so this is what you will then be producing under, correct?
Correct. And you'll see there's already a piece. I put a World Peace card out for the World Peace card collection, right? So that piece released last week, sold out in like 10 minutes. It was a free mint. I made that. Um, you know, for different reasons, but that is connected to that piece, and that's pretty much my first piece on chain, that is connected to my representative piece. Um, that one is a pyrography, and it's actually pyrography, photography, natural staging, and digital altering. So there was a few courses to make that card, and then also storytelling and narrative.
Am I
And
looking
I
at
don't
the?
know.
I
I
want to
mean,
make sure the Gizmo card. I'm looking at the right thing, right?
that's the right thing. That's the one
Okay,
I made.
cool.
It's called Fragments of Eternal Memes. I'm a huge Magic the Gathering fan,
Okay.
and we talked a little bit about collectible assets. Well, that's one that kind of fell into my lap. Like, I played Magic the Gathering in the early days, and I held on to my cards. Well, lo and behold, 20 years later, literally 20 years later, those cards became worth a lot of money.
Oh,
A lot of
really?
money. Yeah. And so a considerable amount of the cards, which I've gotten rid of some, and I still hold on to a bunch, and I still play. I mean, sparsely, not I'm not active anymore, but I love the game and I love the narrative, and all the cards that you see on chain in any form, and even the early cards, the rare Pepes that are selling. The first rare Pepe, the Nakamoto card, selling for I don't even know, 60 ETH or 200
Yeah,
ETH or
a
something.
buddy of mine just bought one. I think it was between 48 and 60 or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're doing quite well, and that's all
hundreds
counterpart.
of
That's
thousands of dollars.
counterparty, right?
Yep, that is on. You can only find it on Counterparty, and that's some of the earliest Bitcoin art. That's all Magic the Gathering derived from. Like, Magic the Gathering
Oh,
set the standard for all these cards. And so Magic the Gathering and crypto have a huge connection, like a huge connection. I didn't know that, obviously, before crypto came around. I mean, it was 96, 97 when these cards were coming online.
right.
So anywho, there's like it's all connected kind of thing. And yeah, so every piece moving forward is going to be put under, from me anyway, is going to be put under London Town Bus Stop.
That's pretty cool. So every collection you have will fall under here. So you've got your first one here. Do any siblings have any? Have they etched yet? It looks like there's, of these 25 children, a lot of this is your grandmother's art. Are we under your dad right now? I think we're under your dad. So are each of your siblings represented here too?
Yeah, so the second one, the pond, is Walney Pond, and that's that bottom one there.
Uh
That's
huh.
my younger brother. So I haven't put my younger sister and my older brother yet, um, and they haven't inscribed anything yet. So
Did he pick this one out from your father's art?
he did.
So
Yeah, he
it's
did.
interesting because I'm thinking out loud, like, because you're right. You're like, oh, I made so many mistakes. But you know what? Like, the cool thing is, like, I think you nailed it on your timeline. You're like, I don't think anyone else is doing a literal genealogy of family on the tree. And of course, the first guy is going to make, because now that I'm seeing yours, I'm already like, I'm totally going to do some sort of a genealogy. I don't know where I'd start or where I'd end, but like, I would already make four less mistakes than you because I'm looking what you did when it was earlier, and you just didn't have the knowledge yet, and Parent Child had just come out, and you also have all the politics. Like, it's freaking fascinating. But like, the first thing I'm like, should the child, like yours, the memories of that bus stop, it's cool that your dad did that, so it's technically a child of his parent, but he is the artist of a piece that you are, then your art is the child of that, instead of you having your art, your seal, if you will, or your art piece to be here among these. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
how you break out the tree is very fascinating, and there's no right and wrong way to do it.
I actually I did not want to make the tree in a conventional sense. Like, if that makes sense, like, I didn't want it to be like, okay, this is, my dad's work is representative of him per se. Like, I wanted it to be the previous generation, a piece of their work to represent the next generation, and then that generation to link to that piece. Like, I thought in my own mind, like, that would be a little bit more meaningful in some way. There is some complications with that, like if there's generations that skip, but I don't, it's a learning process in that sense. And I think, you cross bridges when you get there, kind of thing. But there's also like a lot of opportunity, right? Because, you know, you there's no wrong or right way, right? All we know is a traditional family tree that we see online, like all
Right.
these like services that you can get to, and the whole genealogy industry.
Right.
Um, right? Like, that's all we know. And so I kind of wanted to do it like a little bit different. And then I also have a lot of opportunity with these pieces. If I wanted to, well, I could burn pieces to the point where it's they're still on chain, they're still accessible, they're still linked, but they're no longer like um, I guess in the same like wallet or something like that. There's just room for like experimentation, and also me being the first, there's a lot of room for improvement, and people can kind of build on, like you said, like, you see what I did, you make your own spin on it.
Yeah, it's
And I
interesting
think that's
because
cool.
I think it's actually kind of cool that you didn't try and keep it super clean, but you also, like you said, you made tough decisions because if your dad's parent, so here's a grandparent, your dad's parent is this awesome, head of France that your grandmother did, but that underneath is still the art of the parent until you go, and then you're choosing a piece of art that represents you from your father, and obviously in a perfect world a family tree would be all artists and it would last forever, but like you said, some people participate, some don't, and we're so early that most people don't even understand what it is you're trying to do. But I think it's super cool, and I applaud you for, I don't even say trying, because you've got it on art. You found cheap sats for BB. Just the fact that you have it all in here already fairly well organized to preserve the memory and the love and the memories of your grandmother, like that alone is an accomplishment. The fact that you're trying to like create this legacy that maybe family members will pass down. Cause I always think like 500 years from now, think about it. Like, even if your siblings are like, I don't know, or the other siblings from your grandma, your uncles and aunts are like, whatever. But one of those kids might get really into art and they're like, hey, Uncle Perot, like, wait, what was that thing you had? Cause I want to like put mine online. And then the tree continues there. Cause in 500 years, someone will be like, oh, interesting. Like, so he's got a lot of this mapped out from his perspective, from his grandma down. But then this, who knows, like 100 years after you die, I mean, not to sound morbid, but like this great, great, great niece could have a whole string off that. Like, that's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at some point, if it gets more rigid and fits the mold of like what we're used to, then so be it, right? Like, if one generation skips and then the next generation wants to come online, they get the keys, the seed phrase or whatever, and they get the ability to link, and then they want to do something else and like kind of, fit some sort of mold that everybody's used to on the tree. It's all good. It's an open door. So it's really just about having that open door be open for me, right? And then also it's about artistic genetics on chain, right? Like, this to me was multifaceted. It was a storage, main first and foremost, and then B, like increasing artistic genetics of on chain art, because there's a lot of art that isn't represented on chain. And I thought that, I wasn't seeing a lot of art that I wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I obviously grew up with this art, so I'm like biased to it. And
Of
a lot of
course.
people, there's been some people that have seen this in like my grandma's art and been like, okay, well, this is like art brut or naive art, which are styles of art that, not many people are familiar with. And I thought that was cool to kind of represent that on chain and bring that on chain. And then my dad's like, he did mostly oil on canvas, so that's like a little bit more traditional, but his is still naive. It's kind of uneducated art, is what they call it. It's literally, like uneducated art. But it became super popular and super freeing for artists to kind of dabble that way, because the turn of the 19th century, in fact, like there was a resurgence of it, and that's when it really became popularized because of the constraints of educated art, and people trying
Mm-hmm.
to fit this mold.
Right.
So
Exactly. Where's your
yeah,
dad's? Is your dad's art on chain yet?
yeah. So those two pieces, London Town Bus
These two.
Stop and Walney Pond, those are from him. Those
So
pieces are his, and
those are the only two so far.
those are the only two so far, right? So to circle back to that part of the conversation, like putting physical work on chain, compression is an art in and of itself.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about like making additions using recursion or delegation, like you got to have high resolution on your art, or else those recursive pieces or delegates are going to come out like kind of, like kind of blurry. Like they're not going to be as aesthetically pleasing as they could be. So that's a challenge. Like I wanted it, if the idea is that you're going to have art on chain for all time, to me, it makes sense that the art is as high quality as
Yeah, dude.
possible, right? As feasible.
Within the limits. So show me a piece and then walk me through the process of. It sounds like that alone, figuring out how to compress it to keep the quality as high as possible and where that trade-off is. Like, what? Tell me what tools you used and how you got them, because they do. I mean, they look awesome. Like this looks like, I don't know what you were able to compress some of these down to. I assume a couple 100K. I assume you're not compressing stuff in the megs, but like I assume you're in the low 100K, or no, you're in like the 50,
Yeah.
60K range.
Yeah. Like some of them are 50, 60, some of them are 100. Actually, the first one, like the grandparent, is in the dozens. I just got it as small as possible because if you recall, like that was a bit before the halvening. So even though that's only like a 17 kilobyte
Wow.
piece, um, it cost quite a bit to get that one on chain
Yeah.
and to get it started. Also, it's on an uncommon Satoshi. Um, I was so fortunate to have a few people that I could reach out to about this project, and one of which was Lucas Com of the Bitcoin Puppets and of CCO and Woof and Shids. And so he's an AI master. And, he told me early on, he was like, look, whatever you do, make the grandparent the first piece on an uncommon set. And I was like, well, why is that? And he was like, because uncommon sets are easy to search for on chain. And at the time, I didn't really understood what that meant, but it's true. Like when you're searching for satoshis, um, in the future, if you can imagine, these people are going to put this thing together and figure out how to search it. Well, uncommon satoshis are going to be some of the satoshis that are going to be most commonly sought through, or starting points in searching, because of how the structure of the number is, and because of how they were mined, um, being coming from the block. So that's what I did, and so that cost extra to put it on that Satoshi.
Yeah, I think
And
that
there's
was really good advice. I agree.
yeah, right. And then, there's other pieces that, are on rare sets. And just because as a collector, like I dig that narrative, and like it's still early as heck. I mean, it's so young, the protocol as a whole. So it's not really like time. There's no age there, right? But as a collector, it really made sense to me. And like I know value creation fairly well as a collectible, because that's what the asset world, the collectible asset world is, right? Like we're putting the value on the collectible pieces.
Right.
And the magic cards aren't just worth, something out of nowhere. Nah, there's a story there, there's a narrative there, there's people that really want it, there's nostalgia there, right? Like there's memories there that are connected to it. So it's like it's really important and it's really valuable to for people. It's the same thing when you go to a museum, you find like, whatever in a museum, all those things come into play.
What
And
tools did you
you know
use to compress all this stuff? Like, how did you get some of these? Because some of these, like children, they're really vivid, and the file size looks like it's pretty big. I mean, obviously, you had to sacrifice some on quality, but it looks pretty damn good.
yeah, so that's actually my older brother's forte mostly.
Okay.
So off the top of my head, I don't have like the software, but I will tell you this, that like some of those pieces I did. And you know, I I just went into Photoshop. Photoshop does a lot. Like you can save a file in many different ways through
Uh-huh.
Photoshop. You can resize it, you can RBG, you can work the colors. So sizing or per pixels per the space, the size of the image, and how many pixels are in the image. Like that's a way to size it. Reducing the amount of colors is a way to size it. Um, but I just used free web-based compression services on sometimes, and the most efficient file type is WebP. So most of those files are WebP file types. Um, they started out as like PNG or JPEG, but through compression, they ended up as a WebP because that's the most efficient.
So
So
WebP is the small. I always thought SVG could go smaller, but what maybe SVG has a lot of limitations there, and that's more like for traits and generative art and recursion and stuff like that. That's good to know, because I think as people get into this, depending where the sats per VB are, that's super important. Like, because a lot of this, anything in real life has to be photographed or scanned, right? And those file sizes, obviously, when we have big storage devices, can be huge because we want highest quality. But on Bitcoin, there are trade-offs, and I think you've definitely made the right trade-offs, because there's nothing, I'm not looking at any of them here where I'm like, oh man, did he sacrifice quality? That's all pixelated. Like it looks awesome. It really looks good.
yeah, that was important when I knew that I was going to be making additions. Like I was like very driven to inscribe them in a way that like the additions were going to look good, because you lose a little bit on the recursion and the delegates. Like so, it was very important to do high quality, because if you're selling artwork like that, like people, at least in my opinion, like it's good to give people like something pretty to look at, right? And when it comes to art, for me, like I'm no connoisseur, but I follow my eye, right? And so I'm mostly when I find something beautiful to the eye, that's what really draws me in initially.
Right.
Um, you know, so that was important to me to make that. And you never know with this stuff, right? Like you put artwork on chain, and you have no idea. No one might care about it. No one might do it. If you put on art on chain to sell, I mean, then no one might care about it, right?
Right.
And I'll tell you, I I launched a week after Trump dropped his token. I launched that part of the collection, my grandma's part of the collection, during the absolute worst time of the market. And I
Yeah.
mean, in a
All
lot
the
of people's opinion,
liquidity had been extracted out, and then people were dumping and panicking. Yeah, for sure.
it was it was hell on chain, man, to be 100%. Like I had multiple people I was talking to that were like, hey, wait. And, I was under pressure to act. Um, and it really, out of necessity, formed at least that part of the collection and the reason why the mint and pieces of the mint, like how it was formed,
Mm-hmm.
um, due to IRL events. A few months back, my grandmother passed away. We got into some more family politics,
Mm-hmm.
and the house that my father's been living in for 10 years with my grandma and my grandpa, well, it's going up for sale due to the other side of the family wanting that to happen. And we unexpectedly did not expect that. So part of part of the collection and the purpose of, well, the reason why there was
Here we go.
a little less structure, um, was my rushing to get some pieces on chain to have
Right.
some sort of something, an offering to raise a little bit of funds to make an effort to save the house. And
So so
yeah,
basically your side of the family wants to keep it within the family system because it's a piece of your history, and some, many people now live in America, like some want to sell this house in France. So you're trying, with this collection, the Pirots, and entering the mint here, 3,000 total pieces, 0.001 BTC, 58 unique pieces using recursion, parent-child provenance. Let me click on that. What does that show me? So these are the 58 pieces here. Um, and then what are we
yep,
bidding? What are we bidding on? So I think I saw it before.
yeah.
So
So
explain this piece to me. That's her signature, correct?
that's her signature, right? Like that's the logo for the collection, and that signature is found on pretty much every piece. So the her collection, which is Anne Perot's, like if you go to Magic Eden, you type in Perot's, it'll come up, or you type in Anne Perot's,
Uh-huh.
and it's on Magic Eden now. But her collection is 58 unique pieces that the family decided on, and I basically came up with a number initially. We have a price that we needed to get the house and save it and buy out the other family members, and I worked backward from there. And that pretty much rounded out to be 3 Bitcoin.
Got it.
And so, I started out with that number, and I initially had 13,000 pieces out of the 58. And the price tag for each piece was like $25. With service fees, it was like $31 on Ordinal Genesis. So, you know, that's what it started at. Now, I had a lot of discussions during that launch, a lot of different opinions, and um, over I left it like that for like a week, and you'll see how many folks minted that during that time. But as the resounding one common theme throughout most of my discussions was that, well, people don't really value cheap art, and people don't value art that's in big supply.
No, that's true.
And
Especially on Bitcoin
and
right now because we're still such a small nascent ecosystem.
yeah, and even with and another thing I found is people don't want to know what you're spending the money on, which I thought was funny, but it's true. Like people just don't want to hear it. And I yeah, so I took all that in, and saving this house is like a family dream. I think for us, like, and my grandma and my dad, really, um, to turn her house into like a living museum where my dad could host Airbnb and like have exhibitions of her art, where her art could live. Like that was a dream and would fulfill like her museum dream. Um,
Yeah, that's a good point. God, this stuff's so beautiful. So what's for sale
One sec.
now? So going back to wait a minute, the gallery. Where is it? I gotta go backwards here. So what's for sale now is her seal only, or this is just one of the. You were actually selling those 58 pieces, or no?
Yeah, so that's the collection logo, right? When you mint at that site, it's a random event and you get one of the 58.
Logos. Okay.
So you get one of the 58 originals.
Oh,
And
you do.
it's an edition. It's an edition of the original, right? It's not the actual original because the collection size now is about 3,000 total. So in having all those discussions and such, I left the mint open as it was for like a week, and then I reduced the size of the collection
So
because that just kept
2,500.
coming up. Like the 13,000 number was really holding people back. The market was just complete shit, and so I reduced the size. So now it's like 3,000 pieces total, and the price is $100 a piece. So I reduced the supply, and then I raised the price because that's what people, at least collectors, and it just kept coming up. I mean, I'm not really one to like listen to other people, to be honest, but it just kept coming up, and I'm ultimately just trying to like follow my heart and like what I think would honor my grandma best. But it came to a discussion with my father, and he kind of ragged on me a little bit and was like, of course, Ryan, like lower it and like raise it.
Yeah.
So I did, and um,
Okay, I'm getting it now. Like I went, I was like, yeah, I mean 2,500 mints. I'm just looking at the numbers here, and I'm like, oh, and everyone just mints an edition of the logo. But I'm like, what's the incentive there? And I'm like, oh no, this is just a representation of one of the pieces of art. So this is an edition. Your 2,500 is broken out into these 58 pieces, and these are editions. Yeah, this is cool, man.
right,
This is
right.
super
So
cool.
in those 3,000, like originally, there were three one of ones, right? Because I tried to gamify it out of
Of course.
13,000 pieces. Like from the get go, I knew it was kind of a Hail Mary. It's a big ask. It's a
Oh
long
yeah, it is.
stretch.
Right.
Especially like when Trump launched that thing, I knew it was like going to be, damn near impossible. But I
Right.
tried
Because
to gamify it, and like
yeah,
the thing that came to mind for me was, well, we mint out 10,000 piece PFP collections all the time, right? And how do they look? Well, they look like, you get a couple rares in there, and um, yeah, I mean, pretty much that, right? So
so
you get a couple
OMB, I
rares, and
mean,
then the
I
rest of it's
brought it up
generative.
because OMB is not, this is one of the most famous collections on all of Ordinals, and it's gonna mint out. It looks like, but and the price is good, but that hasn't minted out. It's 3,000 pieces, and it's like you said, it's a challenge, and this is one of the more known. The black eyes on top of the red eyes on top of the blue eyes on top of the orange eyes on top of the green eyes. So, it's tough. It's absolutely
Yeah,
it's super difficult.
it wasn't like that, pre-happening, man. When money was and liquidity was flying around. I mean, I know you remember. There are just times, right? There are times in the market when you know things go easier than other times,
Right.
and we're just in a low part in the market, and it is what it is. Like it just is what it is. So, um, I took all that and I did what I did. I lowered the supply, I raised the price. I tried to gamify it. It's still gamified. There's still pieces in there that are like lower edition than other pieces. Um, So that's another thing that, I myself realized is, you got to have scarcity, right? Or else it's not really, where's the value there, right? So the max amount at 13,000, I tried to be still having meaning, like each higher or common edition was capped at 256 pieces for the hash value of 256. And then I broke it down from there. And, there were some pieces that were at 75, at 50, at 20, at 5, and then,
Right.
one of ones. So that's still all in play. Like there's lower edition stuff. So, anywho, um, fast forward to today, the house was supposed to go up on the market on January 1st, and it
Okay.
did for like a day. But the rest of the family gave us an extension till March 1st. So they basically gave us like, actually, I'm sorry. It was January 31st was the house was going up on the market, and it did.
Okay.
We got a month extension. And so the house is on the market in like a week or something, in less than a week. It's March 1st. So lo and behold, like the reality of trying to save the house is further and further away.
Yeah.
And I've gone through like, my entire network and it's fascinating because I've connected with some IRL gallerists and exhibitionists here in my area, which is the capital area here in the U.S. So
Right.
I've actually linked some pretty heavy hitters, but that's one part of like the art scene is like, well, if you have some unknown work, you have to become known, and it takes like a lot of legwork to get to that point. So all this stuff just came out of like an effort and out of what felt like necessity. But as like the reality dawns of, you know, the house is probably going to be lost here coming very soon.
Sure.
Um, I've revisited the collection before, and I'll have to do it again. Like we don't need, it's purpose driven, right? Like I don't need 3 Bitcoin if we lose the house out of
Right.
the
That
out of
there
the
was a
collection.
purpose to
So
have that to save your grandmother's dream. And now it's like, all right, what makes most sense for eternal art on Bitcoin to preserve her legacy? But now we can cut way back on the amount of mints, if any more, and you can focus on the art and the hierarchy in the family tree. I'm sorry the house thing didn't work out. Like you said, we're so at the mercy of market conditions 365 days sooner, and you might have had a good shot before the halvening when everyone was liquid. I think so many people got wrecked by runes over time, and they just kept like listening to influencers doubling down like, oh, it's gonna go up from here, and at some point it's just pure capitulation, which is what we're seeing now.
yeah,
Are we in full capitulation and we're gonna keep going down with Bitcoin and runes and ordinals? Who knows? We'll see. I mean, certainly this wasn't the greatest day to launch for OMB, but they certainly have minted the majority so far, so we'll see how that pans out for him. But yeah, I mean, as far as your family goes, I wish the story had a super cool ending there. Obviously, it's not March 1st yet, but it's getting close. But it sounds like you've also come to the reality like this was a pretty cool process, all in the same. And I'm a firm believer in life. Like if we follow our gut and instincts and kind of our hearts and kind of our greater good, like we're doing things, and sometimes their purpose isn't revealed until later when we're like, oh my god, I can't believe like because I did this now, like I said, your famous future grandniece like does something, or who knows, or within your lifetime, we just don't know. But ordinals, it's just so early, we don't know when the rocket ship is going to take off, or if in our lifetime it will, and we have to be willing to humbly accept that, and that's hard.
yeah, and hope versus expectation is two completely different things. Like we didn't have any expectation as far as the house part and selling out this collection. We had a lot of hope and still do, but it really wasn't the point of this whole collection, and the project as a whole is not to save this house and to do, a big raise like that. It wasn't that actually came later, right? And
Right.
and we just made an effort, which we're really happy with. And it was really serendipitous how it all happened. Like, low fee environment. Um, I'm home for the time being, playing stay at home dad.
Uh-huh.
So I was able to put the time in, so to speak. And so it is what it is. And we didn't have, thankfully, much expectation at all. And now a lot of this work is in some good hands. Um, you know, I went ahead and like minted a few pieces myself, or created a few pieces myself. And I don't really 100% know exactly what I'm going to do once the house sells. I do want to I'm still feeling it out, like kind of every
Mm-hmm.
day. I take it day by day. Um, but for now, the collection is still open, still mintable. There's pieces on Magic Eden that are like slightly above mint price, that are specific, right? So if you don't want to take that random chance, you can get on Magic Eden and go like a little bit more than mint, or just DM me and like, I'm, you could do that. So that's all there. But the work itself is like, very meaningful for me and us. And I don't know, like that was one benefit I found to having such a big collection and to having a low price, was that it was very flexible. And in the art world, when you increase supply on something, it's a net negative. But when you decrease supply, it's positive. And when you increase price, it's positive. When you decrease price, it's a negative. So, well, yeah, that.
Yeah, 100%. No, I appreciate you. Well, cool. Well, appreciate having you on the show, Perot, and let's let you get back to your fatherly duties here. But this was super cool, and this was. I've heard you on so many spaces now, and I love your eloquence, but I knew this one was a more niche one, but I'm like, I really want to talk to Pro. Like, I've learned a ton here. I think when people get into inscribing and when they start thinking about this, I don't think anyone's given the true parent-child family tree more thought than you. I think they're going to learn a ton, because I'm going to start inscribing more myself, and I really want to like. I love that you're like, you can only be so organized before you do it. Obviously you had necessity too to do it, but like I love the thought that it's like, it's okay if it's sloppy. It's okay if it's messy. Maybe gallery solves that later to clean it up a little, or maybe, you know what, things don't have to be perfectly clean. But before we go, is there anything else you want to share with the audience or whatever before we take off?
Yeah, yeah. I just quickly want to thank you so much for having me, and I hope the audience can handle like my counterpart. So I want to apologize for it, but again,
Oh,
kind
no
of that
apologize at all.
humble part of life that is. Um, but I would say this, like, so I I am truly like considering myself, and especially with my older brother and my father, like we are artists, right? And like we have our lives and we work and this and that, but like we're creatives through and through. And my younger brother and sister as well. And so part of this as well, the door is open now, right? At least that's how I feel. And the door is open in that if we wanted to, at this point, like for us as individual artists,
Mm-hmm.
just like any individual artists on Bitcoin or any crypto ecosystem, or in life, when you create and you want to, create for life and to have a life, well, now what we feel like and what I feel like deeply is that the door is open for that here on Bitcoin now. Now that my piece is on there and I can, have free will as far as creating and putting stuff on chain and, monetizing it in that way, for a life, well, it's there. That's an opportunity there. But it's so much more meaningful now to me to have worked to this point, to get to this point, right? I had to go through so much to get to this point where like my piece, that London town bus stop piece, which
Right.
might not seem like anything to most people, but to me, it represents like so much, right? And like now, for me, that's what it is. So not everything I like as an artist will create. I think will like make it on chain per se, and I'm definitely of the mind of like some things don't need to be on chain, but it's not only now like a place of storage for art that I just want to create and don't care if I monetize,
Right.
but it's also an avenue to monetize creative work. And I think like setting up this foundation in a way, uh, and it's not just me, but it's like every future generation and person in my family that's a creative. There are these options now, and there's like serious meaning now behind whatever path that they choose, right? And so that's all like solidified, and that was a hell of a lot of fucking work to get here. Pardon my
Yeah.
French, but like a heck of a lot of work to get here, right?
Yep.
So it means a lot in that sense. And I would say like, you know, you put a day of thought and planning to save yourself 10 days of work,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
Like that's the old saying. And I just think it's important for artists to kind of have that mindset of, you know, you're coming to Bitcoin. This is it. Like this is the eternity chain. And so make sure that it's like really means a lot to you. Not, and I'm sure I'm sure it means a lot to everybody, but we're seeing it in real time. Like we have a lot less art coming on chain on Bitcoin for certain reasons. One of which is it's expensive to be here. So you gotta commit, and it's in my opinion it's great, and
Yeah.
I'm happy for that. And like
100%.
you
Yep.
know that was one problem. Like other chains got flooded with certain things that it wasn't like really meaningful, but anyway, that's all I wanted to say is like I'm so pumped to, you know, instill meaning on chain.
Yeah, 100%. No, it's well said. And I think you should have them. I mean, because I'm sure they're like, when a family member says something, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, that's cool. Like, we get it. And some of your siblings and your dad and people certainly get it. But, you know, have them watch the show, have them watch you on with good things. Like, we're a small, passionate group right now, but there's a lot of us out here. A lot of people got scared away from the price going down and runes and stuff like that. But it's here to stay, and I think it's going to be here in the long run. And you know, let them know like this there is something here. Like whether it's financially feasible for everyone to make a lot of money, I don't know, and like you don't know, but that's like you said at this stage. That's not the point. The point is this immutability of art and family and parent child and provenance on chain. But yeah, have them watch this show. Maybe they'll get a different perspective when they see someone interviewing you from the outside.
Yeah, definitely will. And yeah, man, I mean, I just think it's amazing the layer of permanence idea for Bitcoin. And, you know, that to me has always been like the technical aspect that's just really appealing. So,
Yeah, one hundred
you know,
percent.
I, I think a lot of people are going to find, you know, just that fact to be enough to bring their work on chain.
Yeah,
So
for
thanks
sure.
again, man. I really appreciate you, your time, your show, and everybody that came in and chimed in and listened in. So I'll take your advice. I'm going to have my whole family watch this.
All right, pro. We'll take care. Good talking. Great show, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.